I'm Kimberly from the Fat Quarter Shop. Today is January 15th, 2020, and we have a special guest, Tula Pink.
Hi.
Thanks for coming. So this is going to be totally her show. I want to start it off with, we have a coupon. I'm going to talk about it a couple of times throughout the live stream for everyone who misses. The coupon is Tula20. That's going to give you $10 off if you buy over $50 of Tula's fabric through the next week. Now, it doesn't include notions because those have a MAP policy, so it can't apply to that. So if you buy over $50 worth of Tula fabric, just put that coupon Tula20 in and you'll get a discount.
Yay, deals.
Yay. So let's just start off with her upcoming fabric, and I'm going to let her talk to you a little bit about her fabric. There's links below where you can see it on our site. So do you want to start with that one?
Yeah. So my newest fabric collection, which is shipping in March, is called Homemade. Ooh. And so there's a lot of it. Every line that I do, I always start with something that I need, right? As a quilter, I make like 50 quilts a year, so there's things I need.
50?
Yes. I make a lot of quilts.
Oh.
Yeah, I make a lot of quilts.
She's putting me to shame here.
So it's like something I need, and I always wanted a sewing themed fabric collection, but all the ones that are out there, they're super cute, but they don't reflect my sewing studio. It's a lot of like vintage.
Yes, black.
Yeah, like it's dark. There's a lot of vintage sewing notions and supplies. And it's like, well, I don't use any of that stuff. Like I use a modern machine and a rotary cutter. And so what I tried to do is I went through the steps of making a quilt and tried to assign a fabric to each step. So the fabric line ends up telling the story of making a quilt. So we have, you start by gathering all of your supplies. So there's all these little handprints.
And those are actually her hands or her mom's hands.
Yeah, they're my hands and my mom's hands because we have the same everything. So they're our hands. And I made my mom sit in my studio for like 12 hours going, now hold it this way, now hold it this way, while I drew her hands. But she's my mom, so she does stuff like that for me. And so you start with an idea, a passion. I want to make something for someone, for something, a baby, a wedding, whatever. And then you have to gather your tools. So I have, all your tools.
And those are actually like her reflections of her rotary cutter and her scissors that she sells that are iridescent.
All my Tula Pink hardware. Yeah, for sure. And then you have to start cutting. So this is actually my cutting mat and ruler design, but made into a fabric. And then you sew. So you get on your sewing machine and, because I designed my sewing machine for Bernina, I can actually coordinate these things to launch together. So that's actually my Bernina sewing machine that I drew because I had the prototype at the time. And then you baste and quilt and stitch and measure and all of that. So each piece sort of represents a step in the quilt making process.
And what I love about this group is it's modern, but it's not modern. Like I would totally use it. And
yeah.
I would like to know from all of you out there, like how many of you have a Tula Pink sewing machine? Because I bet it's over like 50 of you guys.
Ooh. I hope so.
Yeah, like that is like the thing. Like it's
I hope I'm not the one who bought them all.
Yeah.
They're beautiful.
Are they all sold out?
Pretty much, yeah.
Oh.
But I think there's I'm sure there's still some out there. But they went quicker than I thought they would, which is exciting. I bought a lot of them, so it might be mostly me. I'm not sure.
No, it's not. And then we have this kit to go with it. And the backing set is one of her 108-inch wide. So there's 3 108s coming. This is the backing for it. And then there's a green. And it's a big measuring tape.
I thought it would be fun to have just something really big and sort of over the top for the backing.
Yes.
Because I love a wild backing on a quilt. Because so my guest room is I share a wall with my master bedroom and my guest room share a wall. And I always wait for that moment when my guests get into bed and they pull the quilt back.
Oh,
and I can hear I love that. Like, it's a whole new opportunity for somebody to have an experience with the quilt. So I always put the best thing on the back of the quilt. Yeah, so this is the new one, and it's the 3 colorways are morning, noon, and night, because that's how we do.
Yeah, and again, March 2020, you can pre-order it from us at Fat Quarter Shop. And then our sales rep came, I think, on Monday this week. I don't know, last couple of days. And he showed us
is like
this.
brand new. Like,
yeah. So,
I got my color card for this the day before I came here. Like, brand new.
Yep.
So this will ship in June. And this is my new true colors. So if you know me at all, I've had the dots and stripes for a while. And that have been my true colors.
And they're right here.
Yes, and they're right here. And these are just like I essentially consider anything without an animal in it to be a basic. So this is, even though there's a bird in there, but birds are barely animals. They're just everywhere. But so this is all designed to go with all my lines. So this is basic. It's like my new sort of basics, if you will. This is about as basic as I get. But so it's 42 pieces. We've taken the fairy dust, which has been a really fun sort of background piece.
That's one of our best sellers from 2019. I would buy 150 yards and it would be gone in like 15 hours. And then customer service would be like, where's that fabric? It just came. I'm like, and then I would figure out that I sold out. And so I could never keep it in stock. And then we would get so many complaints. And it'd be like, I thought 10 bolts was plenty.
Yeah. Well, I thought so too. So I was surprised by it also. Because typically for me, people buy more of the hero print, the big, elaborate one.
That's true.
And so usually my best seller isn't sort of one of my support pieces. But this one sometimes you just hit it like accidentally without knowing. And so we blew that out into a bunch of like sort of citrusy bright pastels and added a really pale gray. Which I've been really loving using. And then there's this piece called Mineral, which is just sort of a malachite, sort of a stone type design. I just wanted something with fine lines that could act as just a texture. And then this floral sort of silhouette. So these pieces are going to be mostly tonals. These pieces are going to be sort of contrasting colors. So they're add-ins to all of my other lines because I'm an illustrator by trade, so I tend to design big, elaborate prints. But that doesn't make a quilt on its own. So these are going to allow me to fill more of my main collections with big, elaborate prints because I don't have to take up space with some of the support pieces. So these will be ongoing.
Yeah, so this should be reorderable, and you can also pre-order this one. And then this one, when Lily, can you zoom in? It looks like a polka dot on the screen when I see it, but it is a hexagon. And it's just hard to see, but those are hexagons here on all of them instead of dots. Even though it's reading as dots, that's the best I can do.
Yeah, and Free Spirit was like, Tula, only you can take a basic and make it an 18 color print. So these down here, it's the same hexagon that's up here, but there's 4 that actually rainbow ombre through the yardage. So the ombre runs from selvage to selvage. Yep. So even in a half yard cut or a quarter yard cut, you're going to get all those colors.
Yay! So let me know, guys, like what questions you have to start with. And I have some questions here, but like, I know y'all are all excited that she's here. Like, I'm sure I can already, like, in my head know what you guys are saying.
Yes, no, we got lots of excitement in the comments. Lots of people who do have the Tula Pink machines. Let's see, Pam Bendrove has the 77QE. Yeah. Tula E. Hubbard has a Tula Pink 770. And they thought it was funny that it was a Tula buying a Tula Pink machine. And then Veronique Alexander says she has the Tula 570QE and the older Tula 350 SE.
Well done.
You have 2.
Well, she's got 2. That's so cool. Jennifer Daniel Johnson says a friend of hers has the 5 Series Tula Pink machine and it's beautiful.
How many have you done?
This is my 3rd. Yeah.
Oh, I thought it was only 2.
Well, there was the one early one and then the 2 new ones.
The 2 new ones.
3 machines, but in 2 goes.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's funny. Someone was asking if I'm beside myself because I've commented on live stream before that you're my favorite fabric designer. So yes, I am over the moon. This is such a pleasure.
We'll have to go bowling sometime.
Yes. And let's see. Monica bought the B77. She loves her unicorn.
Yes.
That's great. Okay. And Julie Washburn said, when did you say the new line with the fairy dust comes out?
June.
All right. Okay, and I have a question from Gabriel Fuentes. He said, Lily, can you ask Tula what is a secret indulgence that she has that no one knows about?
Oh, that's a good question.
That is a good one. A secret indulgence that no one knows about.
Well, if they don't know about it, maybe she doesn't want them to know about it.
A secret indulgence that no one knows about is probably Battlestar Galactica.
What is that?
Yeah.
It's like one of my favorite TV shows that I never tell people about, so naturally this is the right place because it's real nerdy.
It's a TV show?
It's a TV show. It's like an older TV show. Mm-hmm. Oh, well, not older, but like 2000, early 2000s.
Yeah.
That I like desperately love and rewatch often, but it's super nerdy, so I typically don't talk about it.
Jocelyn over there watches it apparently.
That's amazing.
That's funny. I'm clueless right now.
It's very sci-fi. It's like space and sort of, there's a whole mythology. Like, I can't get into it, otherwise this is a totally different live stream, but yeah.
I would totally I'd probably watch it and not be able to follow it because I'm a dork. Like, I can't, like, some of that I'm just like not interested in, then I'm just like, oh, whatever.
Yeah.
I just give up.
People were asking if you meant the remake.
I meant the remake. Yes,
Okay.
I did I have watched the original, but I mean the remake.
Do you know what she's talking about?
I've never seen it.
This is really splitting our audience now, like the ones who know and the ones who don't know what I'm talking about.
Well, if you don't know, then you're with me. Yay!
And if you do know, then you're a total nerd. Thank you.
My favorite, we had some people send in questions before, and my very favorite question, because I already know the answer, was from Mary Stewart on Facebook, and she asked, being a fellow tattooed maven, have you ever seen someone with a tattoo taken from your fabric?
I have, yes.
Yeah, I have.
Yes, there's quite a few actually. So most tattoo artists won't do someone else's work without permission from the artist.
Mm-hmm. Oh.
So I get a lot of requests, and my only sort of caveat to that is that you have to send me a photo when it's done. So I have like a binder that I keep all the photos in. So there's been a couple hundred, and shockingly, they're all really different. Like, it's not like one design that everyone gets. Like, everybody kind of feels a connection to something different. Sarah Lawson of So Sweetness has a whole sleeve of my fabric.
She does?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't realize that.
It's all from different fabric lines of mine, like all my woodland creatures.
So she just like put it together?
Yeah, her tattoo artist, she brought him a whole bunch of fabric and he put it all together. I mean, it's a full color, like, it's wild.
I never put together that those are her tattoos. That's
I didn't
amazing.
even know she had tattoos. So.
Yeah. Well, she used to wear a sleeve thing on her live streams, but now, it's visible.
But her whole sleeve is all my fabric. I mean, we're really, really super good friends, and it's crazy flattering. And I don't have any of my own work on my body.
I would love to know if y'all were going to tattoo something on your body of me, what would it be? Because there is like, there is nothing in my life. You could tattoo Piggy.
I was going to say I would do a piggy.
Piggy. Someone, Jacqueline Yvonne Woodard on Facebook asked, if you could release an older fabric line, which one would you have reprinted? And she would like to see Acacia reprinted.
Oh, Acacia. I don't get that one as much.
Mm-hmm.
I don't even remember that one, and I've sold every one of her fabric collections. So
you have. You're one of the few.
I'm the best.
You were one of the 3 people who bought my first collection. I would say I would like to, if I would reprint anything, which I kind of don't as a policy.
Right.
Just, it's not exciting for me.
Right.
It would probably be Full Moon Forest in the original colors that I designed it in. So the colors on that, it was really pastel.
Okay.
And so that got changed because they didn't think it was marketable. And quite frankly, at the time, it probably wasn't.
Right. Because she was modern before modern was cool. I mean, to be honest.
It's funny because when I did the All-Stars, where I did some of those owls again from Full Moon Forest, The owls I did in All Stars were actually from the original palette that I did. So the new ones were the way I originally intended it to be. But at the time, there just wasn't a market for it. So it was absolutely the right decision for them to change it. Like, I support it. But if I could go back and do it again, I'd love to see it the way... I still have my original presentation that I sent in saying, can I be a fabric designer, please? And it's got all those colors, and it's like neon pinks and super hot teals and like charcoal grays and all these colors. And when it came out, it was like lavender and baby blue and aqua, and it was the right choice for the time. But I would love to go back and redo that the way I originally envisioned it.
Yeah, and then people are going to be waiting on that now.
Yes. Comment below which print of Tula's would be your favorite to see reprinted.
Yeah, like of your prints, like of like all time, like what animal print is like your favorite? Like, you know, like the big, like not the birds, but like those big...
The big, like, focal pieces. Yeah. I mean, that original owl will always be, because it's the first thing I ever designed. So there's something about that that's always, like, that's what started all of this. And when I originally designed that, I was just doing a paisley, because I thought a fabric line needs to have a paisley in it. And it kind of started to look like an owl, so I redrew it to be that. And when I turned it in, Cheryl, the genius design director at Moda, was like, you know, you'll have to do this for the rest of your life.
Yeah, and you know, when I can remember, we were just talking about my sales rep at the time, which was like, I don't know, 10, 12 years ago. He's no longer with the company because he retired, but when he came to show the line, I can remember sitting at that kitchen table. It was a kitchen table, guys, with Kevin. And the sales rep, you know, when they come, they have a presentation. I mean, they don't just come. They have a whole story because they want to sell you the fabric. And he was like, I was like, oh, yeah, it's a fabric collection. We're going to buy it. You know, and he was like, well, do you see the animals? And I was like, no, what are you talking about? Like, it was before that was a thing. And it was just a fabric collection. Like, somebody like me who, I mean, I don't know. Like, I just didn't know. And Kevin was like, what animal? Like, I can remember that whole, like, you know, Tula's got a story and she's going to have animals in all her collections. And do you see the animals? And we were like, what?
Can we just buy the fabric already? No.
Yeah, but like, but we just didn't know and we didn't get it because, I don't know, like it was before, like she was before her time, if that makes sense. Like it was before it was a thing. Like, I don't know, like, but it's true. Like it was like she made it a thing. It wasn't a thing before she started it.
I get bored really easily, so I like to make things into other things.
Yeah. On YouTube, we have an interesting XG Garbled said, what is your Quilty origin story? She wants as many details.
Very demanding.
Yeah, she says she's a beginner and was wondering when you were just starting, what took your skills to the next level? And what do you do outside of work? And what are your hobbies?
Oh gosh, this is a very multi-layered question. So quilting for me started... so I'm a first generation quilter. I don't come from a long line of quilters. They all quilt now because I made them because I wanted people to quilt with. But when I started, no one else did it. So my grandma gave me like a cheap box sewing machine for my for Christmas when I was 12 because she just wanted to see what I would do with it. That's it.
Right.
Like I was always making things, and she's like, well, she doesn't have this. Let's try this. And I started sewing kind of, I think like every kid does, clothes. You think that that's like the natural thing to do. And so I started cutting like taking a pair of shorts and laying it on like my mom's curtains and cutting out a short shaped hole in my mom's drapes. Yeah, super fun time for all of us. But and then just so I had no idea what I was doing. No clue. And no one in my family could help because they didn't know either. So my mom was like, okay, enough of cutting up all of my stuff. This is getting crazy. So she took me to a fabric store, and it just so happened to be a quilt shop. We didn't know there were different kinds of fabric stores. And I walked in, and it was like walking into a life-size box of crayons. And you got to pick all but it wasn't just a yellow crayon. It was like a yellow crayon with a print on it. It was the most like amazing thing I had ever seen, and I didn't know it existed. And so my mom signed me up for a beginning quilting class. I was 12. I was the youngest person in the class by about 40 years. And and then they hand me a needle with a motor on it and a pizza cutter and told me to make something. And I was like, oh my gosh. So an hour into the class, I had sewed through a finger. I had cut my hand, and the lady at the quilt shop asked my mom, refunded her the rest of the class, and said, please don't bring her back. And, but I had just enough, like we had made 4 patches that day. So I knew how to make like simple blocks at that point. Not well, but well enough. But I hadn't taken the class on binding and quilting and all of that. That was later, but I got kicked out of the class before that. So I would just make a bunch of 4 patches, wrap it around my body and sew it down the side and wear them until they fell apart as skirts. So my early quilts don't survive to this day. They didn't make it. They're on the playground somewhere in pieces. But I kept doing it. For whatever reason, it hit me right. And I just never let go of it. And like I'd put it down for a while, like when I started college, but then I'd always go back to it again and again and again. And it kind of took over all other crafts for me. It was just my absolute favorite thing to do. And I was a closet quilter after college. Well, I'm giving you details,
and it
lady.
wasn't a thing. Like, it wasn't cool.
No, it
like,
was
it
not.
was not cool. Like,
it was not
when
cool.
I was dating Kevin, like, his friends, they were like, she's weird.
She's weird. She quilts.
Yeah, she's weird. I'm like, see me now. Sorry, I'm just, like, one of those people who, like, I've never, like, been afraid to be who I am. And, like, I was a quilter when it was not cool. And people were like,
there was
weird.
A time I was with you. If we would have known each other, we would have been friends. Equally not cool in our quilting.
Yeah, and I'm okay with not being cool. So.
Yeah, me too. But so I started, I was always quilting. I was sort of a closet quilter to a degree because I worked in the music industry and I didn't want like Snoop Dogg to think I wasn't cool.
Did you meet him?
Yeah.
Oh, Lord.
That's like Kimberly's dream.
That's my dream right there.
Yeah? Snoop Dogg specifically?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, no, he's cool and he loves blondes. Just putting that out there.
Well, I'm not interested that way.
Just putting that out there.
I just want him to sing me a little rap, but I'm not interested that way. Kevin, sorry.
Yeah. But so like I was quilting and like all of my coworkers in the design department at the record company like didn't know about it because, you know, I didn't want to lose my street cred.
Right. Yeah.
So, but then I started designing fabric. This is when I got good at it. So I was a loosey-goosey quilter for a long time. Like I didn't really care too much about it, but when I designed my first fabric collection, so originally when I started designing fabric, I designed for Moda, and then I moved to Free Spirit later. But when I first started designing fabric, I went to my very first quilt market, which is our big trade show where we launch all our new products. And I walk up to the Moda booth, my very first one, and I'm walking around the booth and I see, oh my gosh, all these like laundry basket quilts and I mean these incredible quilters with these beautiful quilts. And then I get to the section, it says Tula pink, and then there's like 3 bolts sitting on a shelf. And I was like, where's my quilt? And they go, well, did you make one? I was like, what? I have to make the quilt too? And I was terrified because if I was going to hang a quilt next to some of these people, that like I had to get real good real fast.
Yeah, and at the time, stuff was more intricate, and it was more, like, it's not like it is now where modern has been the thing, and it doesn't have to be all crazy, but at the time, it was like a Lone Star quilt,
it was
45-degree angles, get it together, and here it is.
And it has to be perfect.
Yes, and that was what it was at the time.
Yeah. And so I was like, I went home, I was kind of devastated because I was like, how am I going to compete on this level? Like, how am I going to sell fabric next to some of these things, right? And so, so I went home and I was like, okay, I can really focus and get really good at piecing or really good at quilting, but not both. Like, I don't have the time. So I went in search of a long arm quilter and dedicated myself to piecing and asked questions of every single quilter I met. How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do this? How do you do that?
Because YouTube wasn't a thing.
It wasn't a thing yet.
Yeah.
I mean, with YouTube now, there's so much information out there, but really just from doing it, it's like you get used to how the fabric moves under the needle. You get used to how things work and how it goes together and what falls into what and nesting your seams. Like you pick up these little tricks here and there.
And it takes time to build that.
Yeah, it does. But, I was lucky enough to find Angela Walters.
Did you find her that far back?
Yeah. It was full moon. It was right after full moon forest, so my first line.
Wow. And she does great intricate quilting.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I mean, she was a total godsend and an accident.
And she was new at the time.
Yeah.
And that was like when long arm quilting, like people started buying their machines.
Right.
It was like at the time.
Well, and she was relatively new to long arm quilting. Like she'd been doing it a little while, but she was starting to do it professionally. And I went to a long arm convention in Kansas City. There's like a MQS or AQS or whatever that show was. And there's like Long Armor's Alley where they show their quilting style and you can hire them, right? So it's like...
I've never heard of this.
Yeah, it's like a little section where people sort of show off their skills, right? And then they have business cards and stuff. And I was looking for something very specific. I wanted a lady who was at least 75, who was kind of mean, who could whip me into shape, you know what I mean? Like I wanted a mentor, like somebody who could like make me better, because I wanted someone who was everything that I wasn't. I was naive, I was green, I was young, I wanted experience. Right. I wanted somebody who had just been like beaten down by quilting and just knew everything. And so I found this lady who was all of those things. She was super mean to me and I was so into it. So I was like, this is my lady. Like, she's a great quilter. She's not going to let me get away with anything. All this stuff. Have this whole conversation with her. Pick up the business card. Go home. Call the number. Well, unbeknownst to me, I had picked up the card of the person sitting next to her, who was Angela Walters. Oh. And so when I called the number, I was like, man, she sounds younger on the phone. Like, good for her, you know?
Oh my goodness.
So, side note, Angela tells the story really differently. So we have very competing versions of how we met, but that's a story for another day. But so I called the number. I was like, you know, I've got these quilts. I'm a fabric designer. We talked at the show, and she goes, oh yeah, I remember. So red flag, liar, because I didn't talk to her. But you know, good customer service skills, I suppose. So she's like, meet me at the Starbucks on the corner of whatever, because we live about 40 minutes apart.
Okay.
And so I meet her with my quilt tops, ready to quilt, and she gets out of the car, 8 months pregnant, walks up to the car, and she goes, hi, I'm Angela. And I was like, no, you're not.
Oh.
And goodness. She's like, yeah, you called me. I was like, no, I didn't. Oh, no. You're not Angela.
Oh my goodness.
And I was like, well, I have to have them quilted, so I guess do your best. And of course they were amazing, and no one's ever quilted my quilt since.
Yeah, that's like, if you think about like life and how, I always think about like different decisions can change the effect of your life forever. Like, think about if it wasn't Angela Walters and like where Angela Walters would be now, and like all
and where
of the
I'd
things,
be now. I mean,
right, all of the things, like things happen for a reason, and like all of that whole situation could have gone. That's totally me being.
Yeah,
well,
no, but
I mean,
it was
it totally could. Yes, like it totally could have. Like,
it was fate. I mean, and now we've been, you know, best friends for almost 15 years, and she quilts everything I do, and really my style can't be separated from her.
Right.
Like my quilting style is, I mean, I piece to give her a certain amount of space to do what she does in, and she quilts. Like, we've grown up in our quilting together, so I really feel like you can't talk about either of our quilting styles without while separating us, right?
All right. I have a question here from Wendy Bahji. She says, would you ever do another House of Tula series? I learned so much about the design process. Can't stop myself from making monkey noises every time I cut a piece from Eden.
So if you've seen the series, so I did a little YouTube video series with my publisher a while back about the whole design process. And one episode of that was I had drawn an elephant and my mom thought it was a monkey. And we got in a huge argument over whether it was a monkey
on the video?
or... Yes.
Yeah, on video.
Well, we showed everything. Like, there was no, like... I was like, show it, whatever. It's what happens, you know? We're a family business. We argue, like... And I was so devastated that I had spent days drawing this elephant, and because I had made the ears really round, she thought it was a monkey. And so, yeah, so that was like a really funny part of the series. They're like, do you want us to cut it out? I was like, no, leave it. It's honest, you know?
Right.
So I redrew the ears and it no longer looks like a monkey. It looks like an elephant. But people often look at it upside down and think it's a peacock. So who knows?
Oh my goodness.
But that's what happens when you draw
I don't
weird
think
things.
anybody would ever want to see an argument with me because I always win my arguments and I will look like a total ass.
But do you ever argue with your mom? You can't win an argument against your mom.
Oh, I can.
Oh, you can?
I can win an argument against anybody. I don't back down. I'm a little crazy.
I have absolutely no authority over my mom.
Oh no, my mom and I, no.
My mom,
No. I win all arguments, including all of my children who we had an argument this morning and I was like, you will get out of this car and I will win the argument. And when we come home today, we will discuss it, but I am the winner of the argument.
All right. And then we had asked about tattoos. Wendy Blodgett said she would get a Starbucks cup tattoo in honor of Kimberly.
Yes!
Oh, that's a good one.
Starbucks, okay. I need somebody to give me some free Starbucks because I'm going broke. I've been going 3 times a day. Like, this crack. No, I gotta stop.
Sponsored by Starbucks.
And Kevin is really giving me a hard time. He's like, this is ridiculous. Look at the credit card. It does not need to have all these $100 charges. And I was like, well, you could kind of talk to your daughter about buying drinks for her friends, too. Like, that could kind of go away.
And then Marsha Baker says she has no tattoos, but she put your face on her inner forearm.
Aww.
That's very sweet.
Yeah.
And M. Tillman was asking, will there be embroidery designs released with the homemade line?
Embroidery designs for homemade, yes, there will be. Like machine embroidery,
Mm-hmm.
I'm
I
assuming.
think that's what they're asking.
Yeah, there will be homemade machine embroidery. They're actually working on that now.
All right. And then Wendy also said that if she wasn't
busy.
Wendy's busy on the comments.
She's
Thank you,
like
Wendy.
one of our biggest fans. I love Wendy. She's like all over YouTube, all over Kimberly Stitch Squad. She's my fan.
You got really good comments today, Wendy. She said if I wasn't a chicken, I'd have the otter from Spirit Animal as well.
Oh, I haven't actually seen that one yet.
That's a good one.
That is a good one.
And Lori Fisher was asking, is there an animal hidden in the homemade fabric?
There's not any, there are no animals in homemade, but there are hidden notions.
Oh, I'll have to look.
So I'm always trying to do something unexpected. Like when I sit down to design, I think, what do people think is coming? And then try to do something else because I want it to stay exciting. And, I don't ever want it to get boring for people. So I was like, well, what do people most expect when I sat down to do homemade? And I was like, well, animals, obviously. So what if I did a line with no animals? So this one's no animals.
Yeah, I love this line. I want to do, I actually don't want to do a bag. I want to find somebody who will make me a big tote bag and just have the machine centered. Because that would be so hip. Can you imagine me at Starbucks? People would be like, where did you get that bag? And I'd be like, I made it.
Yeah.
But I didn't because I don't know how to make a bag.
Well, and that was part of the naming.
But, yeah.
That actual sentiment was part of the naming of homemade. When we were thinking about what to call it. When something's homemade, that's usually not a compliment. Typically, that's not how it's seen. And so we're like, what if I want to design this great line and then call sort of reestablish the word.
Right.
Because I think homemade things are awesome.
Yeah.
I mean, obviously that's why we're all here, but to sort of give that word a sort of a new vibe.
Right. Like if you think of the 80s, growing up, people would be like, what?
Your grandma made your jeans?
Yeah. You have some high waters on.
That's funny. And then Crucially said that she would tattoo your quote that says "You do you" because it's her favorite. Yeah, you always say that.
Good cursive font. Well, I mean, I just think that I've been talking about my kids so much about it. They're so these days people are so Emma is so worried about being cool. I'm like, who cares?
Yeah.
Why do you care what somebody thinks? Live your life. She's like, I'm not like you, Mom. I actually care what people think. You don't care. And I'm like, I don't. Live your life. Be the best person. You can be a good person, but why do you care what everybody thinks? Come on. I don't know. It's that whole culture of social media. I'm like, why? How did I have this child who has no, she doesn't have that. It's
it's all kids right now.
I can't take it. Because she has a sister that's 13, and isn't she like that?
Yeah.
It's just I cannot.
We're twin sisters. They're 13.
Twins?
Yeah, they're twins.
Are they identical?
No, not even a little bit. I don't even think they'd be friends if they weren't related.
That's how my twins are.
Yeah. But like one cares and one doesn't. And it's interesting how popular the one who doesn't care is.
Because the way you carry yourself is
Yeah.
like, look at me.
Yeah, there's a vibe to
Yeah,
it. There's a
there
vibe to
is.
it for sure. And yeah, but it's a social media thing. I think when everything's quantified by likes,
Yeah.
it sort of trains you. And I mean, you know, so for those of us who grew up pre-social media, I don't have that everything I do amounts to likes thing.
Yeah.
And so I think it's just different. It's just really, it's a different world right now, for sure. That got deep.
It's true though. Like that's my whole thing about you do you. Like why live your life worried? Just like when I was dating Kevin, like I would cross stitch, I would like sew pillows, and his friends would look at me like, why are you gonna marry her? She's weird. And I'm still that person. Like I'm just me, and it's okay. I don't need everybody to like me.
No. There.
Gabriel Fuentes was asking, have you gone back to visit the quilt shop where you first took your first lesson?
It's no longer there. I think it has been purchased and changed a couple times. But at the time that I was going there, the lady who owned it was like already like in her 70s or 80s, and this was many years ago. So it may have changed hands and changed names, but I don't think it's the same shop. It's just certainly not in the same place anymore.
All right. And then a few people were asking if you would ever do an animal or pattern chart for cross stitch.
An animal or pattern chart for cross stitch. So
You draw it, I'll publish it.
yeah, we actually talked about that at dinner last night. Yes, I would. I did some needlepoint kits a while back with Anchor.
That's right.
But I didn't have quite enough control over it. They just wanted to take the fabric and put it on the canvas, which wasn't the way I wanted to do it.
It doesn't
so I
translate the
never
same.
totally loved it. It was great, but I didn't think it was as good as it could have been. So I would love to go back and revisit that because I do counted cross stitch.
That's what we do.
And I really enjoy it a lot.
Yeah, well, we're gonna have to get on that because I
would do it. I'll do one for Fat Quarter Shop.
Ooh.
Yeah, I mean, because then people will be asking like, well, where is it?
Yeah, yeah, I think it'd be cool.
I'll totally stitch it.
All right, and before we move on to more of your questions, Kimberly, we do have a new YouTube member, Julia Harkins.
Thank you.
Welcome, Julia.
Oh.
Yay. Yes, it's like
Oh,
confetti
and
cannon.
I'm so excited. Okay, we're like 300. Well, when I was driving, I wasn't supposed to be looking, but I was on comments this morning.
Cars drive themselves these days.
Yeah,
It's fine.
I was like 300 away from 200,000, right?
Yep.
So please subscribe because I want to see that 200,000 number.
That'd be cool.
Yes.
Congratulations.
Well, I really want to see the 1 million number, but I can live with 200,000
years.
today.
Baby steps.
Today, yes.
Okay.
Okay, so let's see. Okay, so she wanted to know what kind of hobbies you have.
Oh, what kind of hobbies I have? Oh my gosh, I have no hobbies. I live for sewing.
Really?
Yeah, like legit live for
That's
it.
how I
It's
am.
kind of all I do. I only take breaks to go to my little sister's basketball and volleyball games, and essentially I sew like 12 hours a day.
So I would love to ask about Cameron.
Yeah.
He's like super cute and super
adorable.
like sweet and like so nice, and I would just love to like talk because I know he does a lot for you, and I'm always very curious about him because he doesn't talk, and everybody knows about Tula.
Yeah.
So what does Cameron do?
So Cameron is my brother and basically my right hand. So he is my partner in everything. All decisions are made really as a group between my mom, my brother, and I. We're all sort of equals in this. But I credit Cameron with a very significant amount of my success, for sure, because he put me online.
Yeah, social media, right?
Social media. So he started my Facebook page
Oh.
in secret without telling me because I had zero interest.
Yeah.
I wanted to be completely anonymous.
You did?
Yes. I had no interest in being in front of my fabric ever.
Oh, that would have
And
never worked out.
I know. I just wanted to stay home in my pajamas and draw stuff and make quilts. I never wanted to be
A celebrity.
or whatever this
yeah.
is. Yeah, I never wanted to be any of that. And so he's like, you really got to get online. He was in college at the time. He's like, you really got to get online. And I was like, no interest. I have zero interest in that.
This is so interesting.
And so he started the Facebook group, the Facebook page. and waited until it got like over 1,000 members or friends or whatever. I still don't know anything. And then brought it to me and was like, look. And I was like, oh, wow. And my sales started going up and all. I mean, really, I'd probably still be like a garage designer if it wasn't for him. So he gets a lot of credit. And no, he's wonderful. He went to business school at ASU. And when he graduated, I said, well, come work for me until you figure out what you want to do. And that was like 8 years ago.
And he's younger or the same?
Younger. He's 9 years younger than me.
He is?
Mm-hmm.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Yeah. And the only boy in a sea of girls.
How many girls?
So there's 4 girls.
Oh, no.
And 1 Cameron.
And 1 Cameron.
Oh, no. Poor, your mom. Oh, no.
Yeah.
Mm-mm.
So, no, I mean, he's the best. He's totally the best. He's like, he runs all my online content, all the social media, manages a lot of the marketing, and I mean...
And shipping? Does he do shipping? No.
Well, we don't ship anything.
You don't ship anything? Okay.
Yeah, we don't sell anything. We're like a mythical business.
We're gonna give a confetti cannon to Cam here. He's being so amazing.
Cam! He's probably watching.
Comment,
There's
Cam,
literally,
if you're watching.
you cannot mention my name anywhere online without him knowing about it.
Oh, I bet.
That's awesome.
He knows everything that's happening online, and I get sort of like a filtered version of that.
Yeah, it's hard. Like, you can't do what you do and be online all the time. Like, that's what I try to say on the videos. Like, if I was on social media all day, there's no product that you can produce.
Well, and there's only 2 things that can happen from me reading every single comment. 1, I read a whole bunch of nice stuff about myself and I become a total monster because I think my ego explodes. Or I read one bad thing about myself and I'm in bed for a week. So those are the 2 possible options of what can happen for me reading everything. So all the responses are me.
Right.
He says this person asked this question or this person, and they're all me. I just don't physically do it.
Right.
But we work on all the content together and everything. But yeah, I mean, I'd probably have to retire if he quit.
It's hard. Like, we talked about that this morning because there was like a comment yesterday. It was like negative, totally negative, but I think it's hilarious. I was like, that's funny. Like, I just like take the mean stuff. It's like, but it's just like, that's fine.
Yeah.
Like, whatever.
We get some real weird stuff too.
Yeah, I think that people it's the whole, they can hide behind a computer and say what they want.
Well, we were talking last night. I got an email a couple weeks ago. I mean, some of them are just so funny. Yeah. And a couple weeks ago that said, I heard you were popular, so I went and looked at your fabric. And I just want to tell you that there is not a single truck or airplane in any of your fabrics, so I will not be purchasing your fabric.
Go on, then.
I was like... Cool.
Yeah.
I mean, I don't know like what my response to that's supposed to be.
Go ahead. Okay.
Like, was that supposed to like make me want to design a truck or an airplane? I'm not really sure what the motivation
There's
was.
definitely no inspiration in that. Like, if you want something, you got to ask nice. But yeah, no.
I get a lot more nice ones than that. Those are the rare ones. But we print them out and we have like a little book of them because they're just funny. It's like
I could write a book. Like, I always think I should be, instead of running my mouth, I should be writing all this stuff down that my kids do.
Right.
Like, I would have the funniest book, and then maybe I could retire.
Yeah, that'd be fun.
Yeah.
Tula Pink, who I'm assuming is Cameron, says, hi, everyone. And then you put a little, like, waving
Oh, yeah, that's
emoji.
Cameron.
Hi, Cameron.
Hi, Cam.
Welcome to the chat.
I'm glad you're awake.
And
when
Nelson.
I'm not there, I'm never sure if they're actually, like, going to work or not.
That's hilarious. And Nelson had said, instead of celebrity, you're a celebrity.
Right. There's that.
And Goose Design was asking, do you have any fur babies?
Oh, well, so my brother has a dog that sleeps with me most of the time because I love her so much. And I said, no pets. So Cameron and I live on the same property. We bought together and like separately, but on the same property, and the dog can go between our houses. And so she hangs out with me. I think she likes me better, but I'm sure Cameron, it's a golden retriever.
Okay, there's a good
She's an angel and perfect, and I was like very, very against having a dog
Yeah.
because of the fabric
Right.
and all of that stuff. I was like, no animals. Cam's like, I'm going to get a dog. I'm like, no, you're not. And then my mom and Cam were like, we're going to go to the movies. And then they came back with a dog, and my mom, and it was little like 8-week-old puppy. And I was like, I can't believe you guys did this. I said no. And I was being all mean about it. And she puts the little fluff in my hands and is like, we can take it back to the pound if you want. So mean.
Oh.
And I was like, oh my gosh, I love you. So now she sleeps in my bed, and I never tell her no. So there's that.
Oh,
So
I
yes,
love
I have a
my
dog. I do too.
Okay, and we do have another new YouTube member, Kathy Bell. Welcome,
Do we
Kathy.
get confetti? Yay!
Confetti
That's
cannon.
fun. I wish I had real life confetti.
Yeah, so we're working on that.
Like
Are
just
we
as I
really?
walk through the world.
Oh, I was like, really? Where are you gonna vacuum it?
Just
like,
like,
if we had like
oh,
jelly roll strips that like.
it'd be so cool. Like,
Flew
oh,
out,
my
you
coffee's
know?
so good this morning. Confetti. Just for every
Oh
little
my
celebration.
I'm kidding. We're not gonna have confetti in here, Kimberly.
It's so
Don't worry.
funny.
All right, back to your questions.
Okay, so when you're creating your more complicated fabrics, do you have an image in your mind before you draw, or do you just create it as you draw?
Oh, that's a good one. I essentially know what I'm drawing when I sit down to draw. So I spend the entire time between fabric lines sort of thinking through a lot of
future.
things. By the time I put pencil to paper, I have an idea of exactly what I want it to look like. So I'm pretty much know where I'm headed. But it detours, and I let it do what it's going to do. But I pretty much have a solid, like I make lists actually of everything that I want to accomplish in a line. And for every fabric line, I draw like maybe 25 pieces, and only about 8 to 10 make it in the line.
So tell us about the process of your drawing and how it gets to the manufacturer, and who filters that out, and do
So,
you get final say?
I do get final say. That's an earned
Right.
privilege.
Definitely, yeah.
I didn't in the beginning, but as you work with a company longer and longer, I've been with Free Spirit for, I don't even know, 8, 9 years now. They trust me. So I determine my SKU count, like how many pieces are going to be in it, how many colors of each piece, what the colors are. I really don't get any pushback on that at this point. It's pretty much all up to me, which is delightful, but also a lot of pressure, sort of. But I always heed what came before it. So if something did really well the time before, I want to figure out how to, because that clearly is an indicator that people liked that.
Right.
So I try to move more in that direction. But really I'm just filling the voids that I see in my own work when I'm making a quilt. Like, oh, I really wish I had a piece that did something more like this. So I try to put that in the next line. I think it's really important to be a quilter to design quilting fabric.
Yes, that's so. I could tell so many sales reps that, and they just look at me, and I'm like,
Yeah.
when they show stuff, sometimes I'm like, what quilt are you gonna make with that?
Yeah.
And they
what do
just
you
look
do
at me
with
and they
this?
pull the card back.
Yeah.
Because I'm like, you have to be able to know what you're gonna do with it.
And so a lot of times, because I probably I ask a lot of the people who use my fabric. There's fussy cutting,
Yeah.
I do ask a lot of people who use my fabric. But when I do that, I try to show them how to do
results.
that. So I design all the quilts that go with it, or not all of them, a lot of them. Free Spirit has some designers that design their own as well. But I always try to figure out when I'm designing the fabric, how is this going to work? I'm working on a piece at home right now that is a focal piece, and I have to figure out the spacing so that you can cut a 10.5-inch square without cutting into the next one, but still make the fabric interesting, because that actually is an exceptional amount of space.
Yep.
So how do you make that space interesting, but not so interesting that people feel bad cutting into it? So there is a strategy to those big prints on how to do that, and I have to decide early on, am I going to design quilts where this is cut on point? I'm going to design quilts where this is cut straight? Because that makes a difference about how I lay it out, a big difference. So when I'm designing, I start everything as paper and pencil. I learned how to design fabric from books on William Morris. that I checked out from the library. Because he was the only designer in the textiles section of the library that showed unfinished sketches that showed how things fit together. So I could see the mechanics of the repeat.
Right.
So I still go back to that space a lot and look at his sketches. If I'm doing something really intricate, I go, how would William Morris fit this together? And so I design everything pencil and paper. I don't take it to the computer until the sketch is exactly what it's going to be. So I often design to scale in repeat on paper. So the computer doesn't do any of the work. It's just a tool to get my idea to the mill. So once the sketch is done, I'll take that, I scan it into my computer, and then I retrace it in Adobe Illustrator. And that's just so that I have like a digital, because I don't want to paint out every single colorway. Because I'll go through 20, 30 color variations before I land on one that I feel like is sitting right. So often I have like 20 colorways, and then I just pick the three best ones and send those to the mill.
And then this is a good one that talks about that. Like, how do you stay creative? What is there something in your life that keeps you like creative and being able to keep designing? Because sometimes designers, like maybe not in this industry, but you know, sometimes people burn out or they just have a roadblock or.
Well, burnout is my greatest fear. So I am terrified of burnout. And I battle burnout by quilting. So if I'm like, just happened the other day, I'm in the middle of designing my next collection for next year. So I work about 1.5 years, 2 years out. So I was in the middle of the collection, and it just wasn't like happening, you know, like sometimes it's just not happening and there's nothing you can do about it. So I just stopped and sewed for like 3-4 hours. And it kind of cleared my palette, cleared my mind, because there's, especially like simpler quilts, it's sort of repetitive. I love it. It's like a meditation. So I made this like really easy sort of repetitive quilt, and it really cleared my mind. And then I went back to it. So that's how I battle burnout, is really through sewing. I never am afraid of burnout in quilting. I don't know.
I agree.
I don't feel like that'll ever come. But with creativity, I feel I've never really had creative block. I usually suffer from too many ideas, not enough. And I'm dealing with that right now. I have a list of about 20 prints that I want to make, and I want all of them, but I need to get rid of about half of them. So, like which ones are more vital to the collection, which ones tell the story better. But I feel like I had this really great experience in college with a teacher who talked about creative block. And all it is really is fear. Fear of being judged, fear of it not being good, fear of whatever.
What somebody's going to say.
What someone's going to think, whatever. Yeah. And so I factor bad ideas into my process. So I give myself a week where I'm only allowed to have bad ideas. Like instead of being afraid of it, I just incorporated it.
Okay.
Same thing like with sketchbooks. When I get a brand new sketchbook, I take a big marker and scribble on the first page, because everything in it will be better than that first page.
I could never do that.
So it eliminates failure. Yeah. Or that fear of failure, because everything will be better than that first page no matter what it is.
That's true, yeah.
So I actually factor the fear into my process.
That's good.
Yeah.
I don't think I could do that. Well, I'm definitely not. Like, I'm not creative. I could never do a fabric line or anything like that, but.
I don't know. That seems pretty creative to me.
We have a cool comment here from Mary Tobias. She says, "Love you, Tula. You are the David Bowie of the fabric world."
Oh, well, I'll take that.
Yes.
And lots of people agreed with her in the comments as well.
And I want to remind everybody, we have a coupon. It's Tula20 that gives you $10 off a $50 or more purchase of fabric. It lasts a week. It does not apply to notions.
That's pretty cool.
Yes. Okay, and then Gabriel Fuentes was asking, how advanced is the spool quilt behind you?
That's easy.
So easy.
That's way beginner.
Yeah, so this is a really good example of how I sort of think about the quilt while I'm designing the fabric. I needed a block that would fit the machine that was something else, right? That I want the quilt to keep telling the story of the fabric. So doing all these little spool threads was kind of a fun way to do that. And so the scissor from the scissor print fits perfectly in there. The machine fits perfectly in it. You get a little bit of the top branch and the bottom branch, because I needed like a large rectangle. And it's really, there's not a lot of blocks that are based on a rectangle. They're mostly based on a square. So this is very, very simple. There's a fast 45 little draw the line, sew on the line, cut off the excess. That's like the hardest thing you do in the whole quilt.
Yeah.
It's super easy.
All right. And then we also have another YouTube member, Mary Tillman. Welcome, Mary.
And if you guys haven't subscribed to our channel, definitely subscribe. We're trying to get to 200,000 today.
Yeah, let's do that.
I was
the
trying
goal.
January 1st, but now we're on January 15th. But goals, hey.
January
goals.
is January.
January
that's
is
true.
January.
Even if it's 2021, right?
And then I know we have some quilts that we wanted to show. Do we want to do that or get to more questions?
Yeah, and then I'm going to let Tula, so Skyler, our big helper that we forgot to give a thank you to last week, he's going to hold the quilts and she's going to talk about them.
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you, Skyler.
Yep, so your top is here. There we go. Okay. All right, so where do you want me? You want me?
You're comfortable.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Here.
right here.
Okay.
There we go.
So this is actually not my pattern, but it's probably my favorite quilt that I've ever made because of the backstory. So this quilt, I was in Australia at the Sydney Quilt Expo, and I always carry this, which is my Place for Everything bag with all my hand sewing in it. And I was at the Sydney Quilt Expo. Your arms are going to get tired. I'm sorry, but you can take it.
Fine.
And this had all of my pieces because it's like a 20-hour flight. And so this had all of my hand sewing for the flight back. And it was the last 6 blocks of my Millie Fiore quilt that I had been working on for like 3 years.
Yeah.
So they were all basted and everything in this. I was at a book signing at the Sydney Quilt Expo, and I put the bag down and someone took it. So it just walked away. So that night I was super devastated, mostly because I had nothing to sew on the way home, and 20 hours with idle hands is not fun for me. So I put on Instagram that night, I said, I'm at the Sydney Quilt Show Expo. Somebody mistakenly walked off with my bag, like no blame, turn it into lost and found, no questions asked,
Right.
It had 45 spools of thread in it. It had all my hardware in it. It had, so much stuff.
Your life.
Yeah, my life, my whole hand sewing for the next however many days. So I get to the show the next day, and apparently a lot of the people at the expo had seen my Instagram post and were devastated for me.
Right.
They're like, oh my gosh, we're so embarrassed as a country that someone did this. I'm like, don't worry, it was probably a foreigner. I'm sure it wasn't an Australian. And as I was walking through the show that day, the first booth I came to was Jen Kingwell's booth. And she hands me this smitten pattern, which is by her daughter, Lucy Carson Kingwell. And I had been in her booth the day before talking about how much I love this pattern. And she goes, oh my gosh, I'm so sorry someone took your bag and all the stuff in it. Here's the pieces and the pattern for this quilt. As I walked through the Sew Expo, every booth handed me something to help replace what was in my bag. So this quilt is made 100% out of the generosity of the quilt community. There's nothing in here that wasn't given to me on the floor of the Sew Expo, and it's the only quilt I quilted myself.
Oh.
Because I felt like that was a really important thing. So this quilt to me represents the community at large. One of their own was suffering in some small way, and the entire community in a country that wasn't even mine, that I was at for the first time, made this quilt possible. So this to me is probably my favorite quilt because it represents sort of how I feel about the community at large and how the community treats each other.
That's beautiful.
So pretty.
Yeah, and this is my free fall backing.
Do you want to grab this pillow?
Oh yeah. So this is where are we? There he is. So this is actually an unfinished Tula Nova that I had made.
Oh.
And it's actually much bigger than this, but I ran out of time to finish it before quilt market. So I just took as much as I had done and then sewed it onto this and made a big like Euro sham out of it. So I like to say when I teach English paper piecing, which is my favorite thing to teach, I give you many exits off the highway of English paper piecing because not everyone can take it, you know, because these are not projects you get done in a weekend. And so this is one exit off the highway. You get this far, you think you're going to finish it, you get home and you go, I'm not going to finish this. Sew it on a pillow. This is why I have no unfinished projects in my studio, because if I'm over something, I just sew it onto something smaller and call it done. Like I let myself stop at a certain point and call that good enough.
And people are going to flip over this. So look at this gold. Oh my gosh.
And it says, I made this.
It's so cute.
So I made these little tags for myself that are on all the quilts and projects I make myself, because I figure like in 150 years when they're having the Antique Roadshow on Mars, I want to make sure that the evaluator knows that this is a quilt I made specifically, and I'm hoping that that will have some impact on its value.
Yes, I think it will.
So everything that I make myself, bags, pillows, everything,
Yes.
has this tag and it says, I made this. So
So cute.
That's amazing.
what else we got over there?
A lot of stuff.
Sleeves at the top. Yep, you got it.
I was looking for the tag.
So this one is called Hex on the Beach. So this is another English paper piece pattern that I designed, and this uses all of my solids and all of my dots in color order. So this quilt I designed based on like sort of a Missoni knit, which is an Italian knit fashion brand. And they make these great like sort of chevroned knits.
Yes.
And I really wanted to make a quilt that sort of had that same vibe. So this was originally designed for a fabric line I did called Saltwater, which is no longer available. And I remade it in the solids and dots. But when we made this quilt originally, it came out as a kit with Free Spirit. And I named it and wrote the pattern and everything and sent it into them, and they made it into a kit. And we were on the quilt market floor, the trade show floor, and the design director at Free Spirit comes running over to me and she goes, oh my gosh, I can't believe this happened. I'm like, what? She goes, a customer just made us aware that, do you realize that the name Hex on the Beach has like sexual undertones? And I was like, yeah, I did know that. And she's like, oh no. So I'm no longer allowed to name any of my own kits at Free Spirit.
That's
But
hilarious.
you know, like sometimes you
It was
just gotta have fun.
funny.
Yeah.
It was funny. I mean, generally speaking, if something's not funny, I'm not interested. So the backing of this quilt is a piece from Zuma, my Zuma fabric collection. And so from a distance, it's sort of ombre. But as you get closer, it's little hexagons. And as you get even closer, there's little things inside the hexagons, like little anchors and little different things inside the hexagons. But the actual pattern is actually a tide chart for that day at Zuma Beach when I was designing this. So it's a visual tide chart. Wow. And the piece is called High Tide.
And so is there a pattern available still, or was it only in the kit?
No, it's available as a
Okay.
standalone pattern now. Yeah. Excuse me. It was winter when I left home, and it's like practically summer here.
Oh, it is.
So my
It's
body is
hot.
freaking out.
It's warm
Yeah,
today.
so many people have gotten sick this this year because it's like hot, cold. I'm like, just go to spring. Like, I'm done.
Yeah.
Like, Lily has been sick for like 2 weeks because it's like, I told her like a week ago, I was like, go to the doctor now. It's not going to go away.
Big one.
Yeah.
She was right.
And I was right because I'm an old lady.
So
and I know
this one, oh, sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. I get excited about quilts.
Look at the kitty.
Oh,
Yeah.
let me zoom in.
So this one is actually not a pattern, but it's going to be coming soon. It's another English paper piece pattern. I love hand sewing. I spend half my life on airplanes, which is why I have so many hand sewn quilts. But this one is going to be called Mosaic. And the way I made this quilt in particular is I just made it in rows. And I started with no pattern. I started with yellow and went through just adjusting each color by row until I got back to yellow.
So I have a question. How
Excuse
many
me.
hours would it take you to make a quilt like this?
This kind of a quilt, I mean, one this size takes me, like, I probably worked on this for like 6 months.
Yeah.
I don't know hours wise, but I hand sew every day, just a little bit. Oh yeah, that's the backing. This is the new Pinkerville 108 wide backing. But something like a Tula Nova, I can make in about 7-8 days.
Wow.
The Hex on the Beach quilt, I know I can because I had to meet a deadline, make that in 9 days.
Oh my gosh.
But that's like serious,
day.
like
All
sitting
day.
down, sewing, pretty extreme sewing for 9 days. So 9 days, probably 6 hours a day, so like 36 hours. Wait, does that work out? Did I just do math out loud?
Oh, I think.
So yeah, something like this, but one of my rules about English paper piecing, unless I'm doing something for Quilt Market or a specific event, is I never give myself a deadline. Hand piecing on a deadline takes all the joy out of everything.
It does.
Yeah. And I had no idea how big this one was going to end up being or anything like that. Oh, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. Thank you.
All right, and a few comments that have come in here. Mary Stewart said she loves Zuma. She made her ultimate beginner quilt with Zuma.
Oh, cool.
That's amazing. I haven't seen that. You should share it to the Facebook group. And then Marsha Baker says, y'all be sure to hit the like button on YouTube. Give us that thumbs up if you're enjoying the show.
Definitely. We love a thumbs up.
Yes, yes.
So this is actually a quilt from my book, Quilt with Tula and Angela. So our book, I guess. More aptly, our book. But this one I like to talk about because I talk to a lot of people who have trouble choosing fabrics or it stresses them out, choosing fabrics, and they don't know if they're making the right choice. So I like to bring this one to talk about. So for this quilt, I actually chose the binding first. I knew I wanted this stripe on the binding, and it has a lot of different colors in it. And then I chose all the fabrics from the binding. So you don't always have to start in the middle of a quilt to choose fabrics, which it's like I have to start with my main piece, and then I have to build out from that, and I have to add in a certain number of things. But I often choose the binding or the backing of a quilt and then match everything to that, and let that guide me. And so this is a piece from Chipper. But in the book, I talk a lot about fabric selection, and we go through the book. Each chapter is based on a color, and I talk about how I choose fabrics based on that color. And orange is a color that I really struggle with. Like, everyone has sort of like a color blind spot. For me, it's orange. It just never occurs to me. I like the color. I just never think of it. And so when I got to the orange chapter, I was really lost. Like, I didn't know where to start. And so I was like, well, this binding has a lot of orange in it, so I'll start there. So I developed the quilt from the binding in instead of the quilt out.
All right. And then I have a few questions here.
Yeah.
Julia Harkins was asking, do you have a favorite color, Tula?
Do I have a favorite color? I want to say no, because I feel like I'd say a color and then instantly think of 5 more. What I'm more interested in than a certain color is the way colors combine. So I love two colors together and what those two colors do to each other more than a specific color. I would say the most useful color to me is like an minty aqua color. That to me is a neutral because everything looks good on it. It's like a really great pair of jeans. You can dress it up with heels. You can wear sneakers. Like, it's really versatile. And that's what aqua is for me. So like a neutral thread color, like I own boxes of Aurifil 2835, which is a minty aqua color. It's definitely in one of these somewhere. Yeah, this color. So I own boxes and boxes and boxes of this, of large spools of this color. And it's 2835. Look at me know the number. This is my neutral. So this is the thread I sew with everything.
All right. And then coming from Mary Blythe, she says, I participated in Instagram's Tulapalooza challenge and made 12 Tula tops this year.
Oh my gosh.
And her granddaughter got the pink wildwood quilt.
Oh,
That's
well
amazing.
done.
All right. And we got another quilt to show here.
So this quilt is actually not a pattern and probably won't be a pattern. So don't get too worked up about it. It's very large. So this is called the United States of Tula Pink. And if I was a country, I probably wouldn't be able to decide on a flag. So this would be my flag. I'd have a flag for every day. But this is just my dots and stripes. And then where I didn't have a matching dot to the stripe, I just used an animal. Because my flag for my country would definitely have animals in it. And this is like a lot of different fabrics in the backgrounds and stuff I just pulled from my stash, which is, I have a commendable stash.
Can you show the bottom, Skyler?
Yeah.
Oh, yeah. If you could, like, scoot it up.
Let's see. I want to grab that side.
There we go.
Yeah, so this is the United States of Tula Pink. So every year I go on a sewing vacation because when I take a break from work, I just do the same things I do at work. I just don't sell them. And so it's a group of us that get together to sew for a week or so every year, sometimes twice a year, but we're all industry professionals in one way or another. I'm a fabric designer, there's a shop owner, there's people who work in this industry for a living. And so our only rule for quilt retreat week is that you cannot monetize anything that you do in that week or else you can't come the next time.
Oh.
So it's how we get a chance to sew for ourselves and keep our passion. Because no matter how much you love quilting, if you only ever do it for work purposes, you know, sometimes you need to explore without the result working out. But often at that retreat, we will find that if something's getting really good and someone goes, oh my gosh, this would be a great quilt for my next book, it slides off the table and into a bag and goes away. And they finish it at home so that they don't get kicked out of quilt retreat next year. But so this was one of my quilt retreat quilts.
Oh, so good.
And that's one of the few quilts that wasn't quilted by Angela. I try not to bother her with my fun side projects. So this one was quilted by Kathleen Riggins in Canada, and she is also a genius. I think she used like 32 different thread colors on that or something.
All right. And just to reiterate, because I see a few questions about this, the thread that Tula was talking about is number 2835.
Yes. Thread 2835. I think I should buy stock in it.
Yeah, so I will be ordering more of that today because
That's my neutral. Like, I don't use like a beige or a cream or a gray. I use 2835. That's like my machine thread. I probably have 100 bobbins pre-wound with that. And so this next quilt is actually, I didn't make this. I actually partnered up with Angela Pingle to make this quilt. And this is called, the pattern's called Hidden Agenda. But what I love about this quilt is it's a lot of traditional piecing, but put together in an unusual way. But it had a lot of big spaces for some of the bigger prints, little spaces for some of the coordinates, and then she put it together in this like really pretty rainbow ombre. So I didn't make that, and this is one of the new backings, the 108s, and this is all of my 108s are printed on, it's 100% cotton, but it's a cotton sateen, so it's really soft, and sort of silky against the skin, because when you think about quilts, excuse me, one of the things that's sort of a major tenet of my quilting philosophy is that you should always put your best fabric on the back, because that's the part that touches your skin. So the only way you can ever upset me really is by telling me you put an old bed sheet on the back of your quilt, because really the back of your quilt should be the best part of your quilt, the best fabric, not the afterthought fabric, because when you give a quilt to somebody you love, you want the part that touches them to feel the best. And so I put our backing fabric that Free Spirit makes for me is unmatched. It is the most beautiful cloth ever. And I take whatever's left of the 108 and I back pillows with it or line bags with it. So I use that extra bit, even if it's a quilt about this size.
Okay, and Kathleen Quilts is in the chat. She said, "Hey, that's me.
Yeah,
I had
that's
so much
you.
fun
Hi,
quilting this
Kathleen."
one." Great job, Kathleen.
Move over just in case.
Did you ever get your bag back?
I never got my bag back. No.
Oh man.
And it was actually at the time that it happened that Place for Everything bag was stolen. That Place for Everything bag is genius. It's a Patterns by Annie
Okay.
bag. It's fantastic, in case anyone was wondering. I have like 11 of them. And each one has a different project in it. So I have them on a bookshelf like books, and they're all like this, and then I just pull out the one I want to work on. Yeah, it's a
Yeah,
thing.
I have like bags and they're just like on the hook and they're like on the door handle and they're a mess, and my kids are always like, "Why are you buying another bag? There's a bag there." I'm like, "Because it's not the bag I want right now."
No, yeah, you
I
need
change
many
bags
bags. A
all the
woman
time.
needs many bags.
And I gotta look cute. Like if I'm at a dance convention, I have to like look like I am normal.
Right.
And then if
Absolutely.
I'm like wherever, I gotta look like I don't care. You know, I mean, like there's rules. Studios have
There are.
rules on how you dress when you go. That could be a whole reality show. I could have a reality show on all of that. And it would be real. It would not be scripted. It doesn't have to be scripted.
Yeah.
All right, so questions that came in as we were showing those quilts. Kathy Gomez was asking, what mediums do you use when you draw?
Pencil. I draw all in pencil. I just use I have a favorite brand of mechanical pencils and erasers. Tombow pencils and erasers are mostly what I use. And then I draw on design vellum. And so the design vellum that I draw on, it's kind of like a tracing paper almost, but it has a printed grid on it.
Okay.
Because I have to know when I've reached my repeat limit.
So are these like big sheets?
Yeah, some of them are big. They're like this big. Because a repeat has to very specifically fit on a screen. So a screen is typically like 25 inches wide. So my repeat has to be evenly divisible into 25. So I have to draw to 5 inches or 12.5 inches, or like it has to work out. Otherwise you have a big jump in the fabric.
And I do think that's why some people who design fabric, I mean, they're artists or they make stationery, and then the quilts, the fabric comes in and you're like, this is not usable because it wasn't thought through.
Right.
And I think that you're going to see, we see that like the people who actually use their fabric the most, their fabric sells the most.
I can tell a designer who doesn't sew.
It's easy.
It's actually pretty easy.
Yep.
I have purchased fabrics before that I thought were great and were almost unusable.
Yep.
I had the hardest time using them. And then there's fabrics where they just, every time you cut it, it comes out right. And you're like, and by come out right, I mean like if I cut a 5-inch square or a 2-inch square or a 10-inch square or
It
whatever,
looks good.
the same amount of color is in each piece. So if I take a piece of fabric, I mean, obviously a focal piece isn't going to work that way. But like a piece like this, if I cut it into 2-inch squares, and some of those squares are just pink, some are just green, some are just blue, then it doesn't go back into the quilt looking like it all came from the same fabric. So I can absolutely, from a mile away, tell a fabric designer who doesn't sew.
And they always get better because they use it and then they're like, oh, that didn't work. And then they're upset because it didn't work in their quilt. Well, then they're like, oh, I got to fix that for next time.
And I do that. I still do that.
Yep.
Like, I'm probably 1,000 fabrics in at this point, designed over 1,000 fabrics. And I still, as I'm sewing, go, you know what, next time I'm going to do this way. And sometimes that is, like one of the things I did on the new True Colors is that hexagon piece with the ombre rainbow. Yep. Normally I would run that across, like parallel to the selvage, because typically that's how you run a print. Yep. But this one I actually turned it and made sure that it repeated at least twice for between selvages, so that when you cut a fat quarter, you get all the colors in each fat quarter. So there is a lot of sort of engineering and thought, but I wouldn't have thought of that unless I had a previous fabric that didn't do that the way I wanted it to. So I'm still sort of learning, making changes every time I make a quilt. I think, the next time I do a print like that, and I make myself a note, like, change the orientation, make sure that when you cut a straight quarter, you have everything in that quarter, that you don't need a whole yard to get everything you need.
We do have a super chat from Todas Perez. So they is Super Piggy.
Oh,
this little piggy flies across the screen.
Oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
And it was a super chat for $19.99, and they just put a little pear that's jumping up and down saying goal. I guess we just hit 200K.
Oh, yay!
That's exciting.
Woo!
Yay! Oh, confetti again.
Confetti
cannon. Love that. I need you to follow me around with that.
That's great. Okay, we have another question that's not about quilting, but I thought it was a very interesting question. Nicole Natal says, strange question, Tula, what is your favorite animated movie? I grew up with The Last Unicorn, and it was a huge influence on my style.
The Last Unicorn is good. I mean, animated movie? Oh, gosh.
It's very different.
Animated
I think I know what
movie.
Kimberly's is.
Mine is nothing.
I thought it was Frozen.
I mean, it's all right. Movies are not my thing. Yeah. I don't know anything.
I don't know. My favorite animated movie. I'm like going through like a vast catalog right now. I might have to come back.
Was Lego animated?
Yeah.
Was that animated?
I watched that.
So like does like isn't that like CGI? Like I feel like we need to put. See, now I'm getting nerdy. I feel like I need CGI? Parameters.
It's computer graphics something.
Okay. Yeah.
But yeah, it's the ones that are more 3D looking.
Okay. Yeah, they look more 3D.
Real.
Yeah.
I mean, The Last Unicorn was really good. Mm-hmm. I mean, like, would the Dark Crystal be considered animated? That's puppets, isn't it?
It is puppets, yeah.
I don't even know. I don't know.
Not people. I don't know. Like, I feel like
practical.
I need parameters. This question is just too big.
That's funny.
It's too big for me.
Well, whoever asked if you would like to set those parameters, feel free to comment.
Then maybe she'll answer.
Yes, and then okay, because they're saying Lego Movie was more stop motion, but it was actually CGI. They just made it look like stop motion.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's probably like I've only seen like 2 movies like that, then, because I don't watch movies.
That's funny.
I watch movies.
And then Laura O'Gwyn Parker was asking, "Are you a reader? And if so, what type of books or favorite author?"
I am a reader. I love to read. I love storytelling of any kind, whether that's someone telling me a story, reading a story, watching it on TV or a movie or whatever. I just love storytelling in general. I read all kinds of things. I read total garbage. I love Harry Potter, like more than life itself.
Yes.
I've probably read it like 8 times, the whole thing, all 7.
Yes.
I love classics. Probably the thing that I go back to a lot is like Sherlock Holmes, Arthur Conan Doyle. I love stuff like that. Pride and Prejudice. Just that one, though. I love Mr. Darcy. I mean, I am a girl.
I'm totally
like,
lost.
Everything. I will read anything and everything.
I have a Jeffrey Epstein book I'm going to read.
Well, there you go.
You know who that is?
No.
Oh, you should read it.
Okay. But I love business books too. I read a lot of business books and anything. I'll read anything. I love all things.
We have a lot of animated movie suggestions in the comments. Let's see, we have Fantasia.
Oh, yeah.
Never-Ending Story.
Is that animated?
I don't think it is. I think it's integrating
well,
both.
I thought of Never-Ending Story, but I was like, I don't know that that's animated, but that's a great one. Fantasia, that is a really good one.
Yes.
Is that Disney?
Yeah. Like early Disney. Like when Mickey is like
Well, he's Sorcerer
doing the
Mickey.
whole, Sorcerer Mickey, and he's like conducting
No idea.
the world. Yeah, it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love
My
Fantasia.
kids are really missing out.
Someone else said Secret of Nim.
Oh, yeah. Oh, gosh. You guys have some really good ones.
Yeah.
See, this is why it's hard, because every time you mention another one, I'm like, yes, that
That's
one.
better.
That's the one.
That's great. Oh, someone was saying Outlander, but that's a TV series, right?
Yeah. Outlander's a TV series.
Yeah. Okay.
I love Despicable Me, too. Like that part where she gets the unicorn and she goes, "It's so fluffy!"
Yep.
That's like my favorite
Okay,
line in any movie.
I have seen that.
That one's funny.
That's great. Okay. Back to quilting questions.
Yes.
Polly D'Angelo was asking if you starch.
Do I starch? Oh, yeah.
You do?
Big time.
Okay, how do you do it?
Well, I best press, which is similar.
But do you do it like soak it and let it dry?
I soak it before I cut. So I do all my best pressing before I cut. I
And you
douse
let it
the
dry?
fabric, I let it dry,
Okay.
and then I press it out. And then there's so much best press in there that I never have to do it again.
So what is your scent that you like?
I like either the ocean breeze or the laundry clean
Okay.
linen something. I typically don't do the fruity ones. They just I use so much of it, it gets
and your
overwhelming in
house
my
smells.
studio.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So is your studio in your house? Or is
It is in my
separate?
house. It is in my house. So I bought a building. So I live on the 3rd floor. Cameron lives on the 1st floor. And the studio and offices are on the 2nd floor. So he
oh.
comes up to work. I come down to work.
So does his dog scratch? Like, I need to go up to
We leave all the doors open. She can go anywhere she wants. She rules everything.
Oh, I see.
Yeah. So, yeah. So it's pretty cool. We're getting ready to build a new studio on the property, though. Because I feel like if I left my house, that would be better for me psychologically.
Oh, yeah.
Like I'd have to put
yeah.
on shoes. Like I feel like that would do something for me. So
That's great. Wendy Bahji was asking, is there an Aurifil pack for homemade?
Yes.
yes, there is.
It's
Yes.
not out yet, but yes.
Yes.
It's coming. It's in a gold tin.
It's a really cool.
It should be on our coming soon page.
Yes.
Yeah, and we
We'll
actually
make sure
printed
it
on
is.
the tin. It's very cool. And you
Yeah.
can use the tin for like a ton of stuff after.
Yeah, and I think I showed it in person with a video with Lily while I was at market.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
Yes,
So
you did.
there is somewhere where I'm holding it. So
Yes.
there is that
Yeah,
somewhere.
I should have brought one. I didn't even.
I don't
think
even
about
know
it.
where.
And
but,
it is on the coming
it's
soon.
somewhere.
I saw it yesterday.
but the video, like where you can like see it, because I was like, I was opening it. I was like,
It's the most adorable one
yeah.
yet. I
Elena
think.
was looking at me like, why are you opening all that?
Yeah.
And I was
So
like,
it
"Let me
comes.
open."
The cool thing about it is there's 10 little spools that are like really saturated colors that match the line, and then 4 large spools that are more of your sort of neutrals. So that 2835, there's a cream, a pale gray, and a charcoal gray. That are your big spools that sort of work across all things, and then your smaller spools for things like top stitching and where the thread really shows.
All right. Gabriel Fuentes had been asking if you've seen the new Star Wars since you like
I
Battlestar
have
Galactica.
not seen the new Star Wars.
Ah.
It's just like a really vast universe. I have a hard time, like I don't know where to begin.
I've never seen one Star Wars, so there's that.
Whoa.
One of my sisters is really into it though.
I don't.
I bought her like a real
The
lightsaber.
13.
That's so cool.
Yeah, the gamer one.
Oh, that's right. Her sister wants to be a gamer.
I have a gamer sister.
What does she play?
Fortnite?
Fortnite.
Oh, yeah.
That's the thing right
Yeah.
now.
I think. Like, I don't want to say too much and embarrass her if she's moved on from that thing now.
Yeah, my kids play
It's
that.
very specific.
My kids play NBA 2K,
Okay.
and they play it. It's a new thing that Santa Claus brought, and it's above my bedroom, and I don't appreciate it because they jump up and down, and I'm like, hit the button, don't jump up and down. And then Kevin says, "Can you hear that?" I'm like, "Are you joking? Like, I'm gonna move that thing."
Yeah, Jane has.
But it's like the first time they've gotten one.
Yeah, Jane has a whole like
System
like in part, like a whole part of the house that no one else goes in. That's all lit up. It looks like a rave in there. It's
That
her
is
gaming
so
situation. Yeah. My mom's house is this very like beautiful, tasteful, like really lovely. She has excellent taste. And then you go to this one corner and it's all black and neon lights and like flashing things.
Yeah.
It's like epilepsy and like
Yeah.
3 dimensions. Yeah.
Yeah, and then it's like, that's like when your kids just rule the world, pretty much.
Yes.
All right. And we have a question here from Teresa. She says, with so many companies moving to digital printing, what are your thoughts on designing for digital, and do you see that in your fabric future?
Digital printing, I love conventional printing, so I really prefer it because the digital printing is essentially screen printed, so the ink actually sinks into the fabrics and saturates the threads of the cloth, where digital printing really sits on top of the fabric. And I don't feel like it's gotten to a place where it's good enough to replace conventional printing.
It doesn't feel as good.
It doesn't feel as good. There's also something in the limitations of conventional printing that really force a designer to do more. You know, because I have a certain number of colors that I have to use, and I can't go past that. And there's different things that we use, like we'll use a pigment ink in some places where, so when 2 colors overlap and change color, that's called trapping, that space in between, where like if you printed a yellow and a blue next to each other, where those 2 colors overlap, it'll turn green, and that's called trapping. And so I work with the trapping in my fabric to create colors that I don't have room for.
Okay, that makes sense.
So if I am out of color places, because with conventional printing, there's only so many spaces for colors, and you have to have room to let inks dry between colors. Like there's a whole sort of method and system to it that I think can create results that digital printing can't create. And so sometimes when I really want to put, like we actually did it in a couple of these homemade prints where in one of the machine prints, I print like this bright kind of pale peachy orange on top of aqua, and it's a really fine line, and the trapping would have made it mud. So we used a pigment ink, which is actually an opaque ink. So it rises up on the fabric just a little bit, but it creates a dimensionality. So I play with those things. I think the sort of boundaries of conventional printing make me have to work harder to make things interesting, but it takes me to places I couldn't get to with digital printing. So there is something really tactile about that I will never truly let go of. But in my opinion, digital printing hasn't gotten good enough yet for me to completely replace it, although it has gotten...
Yeah, I mean, when sales reps show it, like when they pull it out of their bag, you can instantly say, that's digital, right? That's digital, right? And the funny thing that to me, it costs a lot more. And I'm like, but it doesn't look as good.
Yeah.
To me. I mean, there are some prints out there that do.
There are some that couldn't be done conventionally.
Yeah, but a lot of them, you're like, why would I pay more?
Yeah.
And then I don't want the customer to call and say, why did I pay $15 a yard? This feels bad.
Yeah. Well, one of the things, I think if you're going to digital printing because it cannot be achieved any other way, like when you're using it genuinely as a tool to execute a concept, that's a totally different thing. The way I design, digital printing doesn't add anything to my process. So I don't really feel like it's right for my work. But there are some things, like I bought a digital print recently that I was like, this is really cool and different and could not have been achieved any other way. So in that case, I was like, cool with it.
Right.
But for my fabrics, it's I don't know that it'll ever be something that really works for my fabrics to make it better.
All right. And then question from Laura O'Gwen. What business book would you recommend for small business owners?
Oh. Probably the book I go back to the most, and this is going to sound super nerdy. Oh my gosh, everything I say sounds nerdy. I don't even need to preface that anymore. Is The 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. Is one that I actually like go back to from time to time. It's just really good, solid information that I feel like never goes out of date. Because one of the things that I've worked on, you know, I started as a designer, but had to build a business around it, and that's a really different thing. And one of my goals always is to be a good manager. Like, and it's a hard thing to do. Like,
it's not easy.
It's really difficult. Like, how do you encourage somebody, but also give them room to
guide them to the right way, give them room, not cut them off, but then if they're not going the right way, be able to cut them off. It's a fine line.
It is. And I don't think I started out really great at it, especially working with family. So everybody who works for me is a member of my family. And now, you know, my brother, I'm 9 years older than him, so I've been the boss of him since he was born, so that was not hard. My mom, on the other hand, has been the boss of me since I was born. I cannot tell her what to do. Telling your mother what to do is very difficult. And so I had to, you know, I wanted her to work for me or with me more appropriately because I trusted her. And so I had to just do that.
Yeah.
And with my brother too, you know, we all got to a place like working with family is hard, and
It is.
it didn't start out all roses and daisies, but we got to a really nice place because each person is 100% in charge of their domain. And so if I say, I really want to do this with social media, but Cameron says, I don't think we should do that, we should do this, there's no contest.
That's exactly how Kevin and I are. Like, it's like he does this, I do this. If I really want something, I will just I'll walk in his office and be really nice. Can you please work on this? And he usually is like, it's on the list, and then I leave.
Yeah.
And like, we're very clear, like we have certain employees and they don't cross.
Yeah.
You can't do it. You can't. You have to do your own thing, and you have to be in charge of it. And then it's easy for me when somebody says, well, this, I'm like, that's not my job. Go to Kevin. Like, you don't, I don't know. You just, that's the only way. I mean, it didn't start out good. We used to yell at each other. I mean, but it was just us. I mean, it was us and like 2 or 3 people working in the warehouse, you know, working 120 hours a week. We were thinking, you know, we're like young. We had all the energy in the world, and we would just like yell at each other. And now we're like, whatever.
Yeah. I mean, it took like Quilt Market was a big one for us because all 3 of us are alphas. Yeah. We all think we know exactly the best way to do something. To do the booth, to build the booth. That was such a struggle in the beginning. And finally I was like, okay, we need to put one person in charge of this. Who is the one person of the 3 of us that the other 2 will listen to? Absolutely. Mom. So Mom is now in charge of the booth, and we can all have ideas on how to do it, but whatever she decides is the best way to do it is the way it's done. You can't ask questions.
Yeah.
And she's really our hardest worker, if I'm honest. So put her in charge of stuff, it gets done.
A lot of people are asking what the dog's name is.
Lily.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my goodness. Okay, now this is I'll never get it right. Is it Lilly or Lily?
It's Lily.
Okay, so mine is 2 L's.
But Lily's real name is Liliana with 2 double L's.
With 1 L.
Wait, what? Okay, never mind. See, I'm not going to get it right. Yeah. So your dog is 1 L.
1 L.
But Lily's 2 L's.
Yes, unless
but
you
then
spell
she's
it
really
Liliana.
1 L.
Yeah.
I'm like, can you be one or the other?
No.
Well, and she's named after our grandmother, who gave me my first sewing machine.
Oh my gosh.
So she's Lily May, because that
Lily
was
May.
our grandmother's name, was Lillian May.
That's beautiful.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm named after my mother.
I wanted to name her Dr. Evil, but I was overridden.
That's amazing.
I don't know who that is, so
I don't know that it's anybody, is it? Yeah.
Yeah.
From
but-
Austin Powers.
yeah.
Yeah, Dr. Evil. Well, because my mom has a golden retriever that was already named when she got it, and his name is Megamind.
Oh.
So I thought Megamind and Dr. Evil, we could
Yeah.
have like a super villain dog golden retriever group, but
Yes.
no one was on board.
What's Megamind?
Like another cartoon villain.
Yeah.
Okay.
it's a great
Yeah.
villain. Michelle Olson was asking what your favorite notion is.
My favorite, well, right now, so again, categories. This is like the animated movie all over again. My favorite, I have a favorite scissor, which is the micro serrated bent trimmer, is like my favorite thing
yours.
ever. That's mine.
Right.
But I don't want to be an ego monster, so I'll name something that isn't mine also, and that is my favorite new notion is the So Tight. I don't know if you've seen
Yep,
it.
we
It's like
have
a
'em.
little magnet.
We don't have many of them, so I'll have to reorder that.
It is like, I get a lot of little notions that people give me for things, and they're all really useful, but it's rare that one gets like very heavily incorporated into what I do. I have So Tights now everywhere. They're in every bag, every
What do
room in
you
my
do with
house.
them?
So I use them for two things. One, for English paper
Is
piecing.
it clips?
To hold, well, it
Magnets.
It
That's right,
magnets.
okay.
So
Yeah,
I use
okay.
them for English paper piecing. I used to use Wonder Clips, which are also great. But they have the plastic thing that sticks up, and
Yeah,
my thread would
thread
always get
goes.
wrapped around it. And so
But that's the idea we're going with. Sorry.
Yeah.
We have
Oh.
another idea going with.
okay.
I was like, wait,
Cool.
she's saying the same thing Justin wants to do.
And so somebody, the girls who came out with the So Tights, they handed me one at market. I was like, oh, cool, and kind of forgot about it. Took it home and started using it just because it was in my bag. And so it holds the two pieces together, but there's nothing sticking up. It's totally flat to the fabric. So my thread never wraps around it. It doesn't catch on anything. And on an airplane, I put it on my shirt and it becomes a needle minder so I don't drop my needle in the seat for the next customer.
Now, are there a bunch of sizes or one size?
There are sizes.
Okay.
So there's like little purple ones, there's big aqua ones, and then there's like the little orange dots. I use the little purple ones. I use all of them really. But the other thing I really love it for is I make a lot of By Annie bags.
Yep.
And so whenever there's vinyl, you can't pin those.
Yep.
So I can magnet them. And so when you use Wonder Clips on those too, which are also really great. I'm not
It'll
saying anything bad
dent.
about Wonder Clips. I love Wonder Clips. But they also stick out, so you have to remove them as you sew. These, you can put the magnet on the vinyl in the middle and sew right through it without having to take them off. It's kind of it's sort of amazing. Yeah.
I never thought about that.
They're really great. I use them for lots of stuff.
Okay, so I'm just warning you guys, we don't have very many of those in stock, so we will order those today.
Yeah, they're great.
I didn't really know what they were for.
Yeah, I didn't either
I
when
was
they gave them
like,
to
I
me.
don't get it, but I get it now.
Yeah, I mean, for English paper piecing, they're a godsend. For bag making, I've started using them, especially when holding, because they'll go through all the layers of soft and stable and stuff.
Oh, okay.
So when I'm making a bag and I have a lot of pieces held together and I can't get a pin through all of it without
Yeah.
bending my pin, the magnet will hold all those together as well. It's pretty genius stuff.
When you go through the metal detector, does it go off at the airport? Because it's a magnet?
No, they're usually in my bag.
Okay.
Yeah, I don't think that would set it off.
I don't know.
'Cause
I
other
don't know what
little-
sets those things off. I'm always the person pulled out of line for the extra security check.
I
every
used
time.
to do the thing where I would just be like, I'm not going to that machine. It's going to give me cancer. Because I'm going to whatever. And then I just said, forget it. I'm going to try to do what Lily has. Lily has TSA pre-check.
Yes.
I just need to do
Lifesaver.
it. I just
Oh
need
yeah,
to do it.
it's
Do you do
amazing.
it?
Yeah.
She has it. And
love
so
it.
she's always like, don't check in. Let me check in so we can go through pre-check.
I have every single airline expedited. Like I have global entry. I
Yeah.
have clear. I have pre-check.
I have clear.
I hate waiting in a line for.
I
and I
just-
don't like taking my shoes off. Weird.
That's
I hate
disgusting.
doing
Okay,
that.
there was a study.
I think it's disgusting too.
There was a study, and it is out there, and you can read it. And then they went through an airport, like a health place, and the dirtiest place is those feet.
Yeah. Gross.
It's disgusting. I'm like, and I don't even when we go to say Six Flags. I'm like, don't touch the railing. You're gonna get germs.
I don't touch a railing at an
No,
airport
and I don't
either.
touch door handles.
Nope.
Nothing. It's disgusting. And so I'm like, I don't. One time I
Yeah.
wiped my feet, and Emma was like, "That's embarrassing." I was like, "I don't care."
Actually, on the flight here, I saw, because I think that I have a real hardcore airport etiquette thing, because I'm in airports so much. Like, don't look at your phone while you're walking down the aisle. You're going to run into people. There's suitcases. Like, pay attention. And
in real life, hello,
Yeah.
pay attention.
but like, you know, always put your suitcase over your seat.
Yes.
Don't put it over my seat and then go 20 rows back. So I have a lot of airport like finickiness because I'm on airplanes so much. But on the way here, I sat down on the airplane and the guy like across the aisle from me, I was like, what is he doing? Because he was real busy. He was taking wipes and wiping down every surface of the seat and the tray and the like everything before he sat down. I'm like, that guy knows what he's doing.
Yeah.
He is
Yeah.
not going to get sick after this flight.
Yeah, I just, oh.
Yeah.
Well, you know me, like, I think my thing with airports is I don't want to be around that many people. Ever.
either.
I don't want to go to a concert. I want to go see Gabriel Iglesias. I refuse to go because he's going to Frank Irwin Center. No. I'm not going in. I don't want to go to a football. I am so scared. I do not want to be around that many people. It's like almost like a full-on panic attack, like somebody could shoot me. There's all these people, they could touch me. There's germs. Like, it just becomes
very intense, you
Oh my
guys.
gosh. And Kevin's like, you're weird. I'm like, you knew it when you married me. Sorry.
You're the
But
one who married the quilter.
Yeah, but
your
it's
fault.
just very like,
Yeah.
no.
It's a lot of people in one place.
Yeah, it's like,
Yeah. Also, you have to get off the airplane row by row. Don't come back from row 7 if I'm in row 5 and try to get off before me. I will throw an arm out. There's an etiquette to how if we all get on and off the plane in the way we were supposed to, it will happen much faster.
Yeah.
Yeah. I have rules.
Teresa was asking, since Tula is here, does that mean we can look forward to Tula videos on the channel soon?
Yes.
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 Yes, that
That's
is why
what
she's
I
here.
came for.
All right, and lots of people are asking about the Biani bags we have on set, if we could show them real quick.
Oh, sure.
So there's that one.
Yeah, so this one is probably the one I've made the most. So this one is called A Place for Everything. And after my last one got stolen, I made this one very menacing so that people wouldn't steal it. So there's a snake on it and it says keep out. So I thought that would help deter people from stealing it. And it hasn't been stolen, so clearly it's working.
Keep out, don't touch.
But this one, so this is all my threads I have in here. So I have all my threads in here. I have my pieces, my needles, more pieces. And the cool thing about this bag is that if I am sewing and I don't know what thread color I need, but I don't want this whole thing out, like planes are small.
Right.
So I can just take this page out with all my thread colors in it and put this in the overhead. So this is a really great like travel bag because I can just take one page at a time and I can add pages to it. So I can put pages from another book into this one.
What is it called again?
A Place for Everything.
Place for
And she means it, man. I love Annie's patterns. I'm actually a terrible bag maker. My sewing skills do not translate into 3 dimensions, but for whatever reason, I can make Annie's patterns and they work out right every time. Any other pattern, a mess.
I learned the most from her when she came because I was like, wait, you do what? Like, I mean, it's like she can,
She is a stone cold genius.
yeah, like
Yeah.
she can translate it to like if you're not a bag maker, sometimes bag makers are like, it's like talking to a sewer and you're like, what does that term mean? Or
It's a
what-
different language.
It is. And like her, you could like understand and you're like, oh, I could do it.
Do you have the other part of this bag around here somewhere?
Oh, the strap?
Yeah, the strap and the scissor case. I think it's over
Is
somewhere.
it this one?
No,
No.
that's a different thing. That's just my computer cords.
Oh, as I open it.
Do you know what I'm talking about, Jocelyn? No.
Looking for it.
It's the same fabric as this. And it has all my hardware in it.
Oh, is it the one over there?
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
it is the one over there. So, because these all go together. So this is the strap for this. So there's a couple of things. So I worship at the altar of Annie.
Sorry.
Like deeply. I just think that she is probably the best pattern writer on earth.
And she's got all the colors that you need.
Everything. The zippers are great. Her soft and stable is great. Like the way she puts a pattern together, the only time anything ever goes wrong when I'm making one of her patterns is when I start to think I know better. And so I'll like go, oh, I'm just going to do this really quick. Ruined. Follow the instructions exactly the way they're written, and they come out great every time. So this is actually, these bags are sort of a collection of, they all kind of go together. So this one and this one are called Take a Stand. And then this is a separate pattern, but sort of goes with it. And this is called Running with Scissors. And this bag is sort of amazing. So the only two things I don't like to do are make straps or zipper pulls. I don't know why. It bores me. I can't do it. So I use ribbon for all my zipper pulls.
Yeah, and that's Renaissance ribbon.
Yeah. So this is the homemade ribbon that goes with the fabric collection. So you have all the little designs from Homemade on here.
Yeah, that's ribbon. Yeah.
Yeah, so I just sew the ribbon onto webbing.
Okay.
And then I don't have to make a strap because boring. But this one, so this is a pattern that Annie actually called me and said, what do you need? And I said, a place to keep all my scissors.
Oh my god.
So this is, so it holds all of my scissors, all of my hardware, and this is actually for thread, but I put all my machine feet in it. Wow. And the cool thing about this is that it's designed to sit.
That's
on
right.
that.
I've seen that. Okay.
Can you see that there? So it's designed to sit on that. So I keep this, except it has a pillow in it and it's a little wobbly, but normally it stands up really good. But so I keep this next to my sewing machine on like a Lazy Susan.
Right.
And I just spin around and get what I need out of it. And then when I want to go sew somewhere else, just pack it up and it all fits in this. So, and then this is the strap for this guy.
So cool.
So these two bags are called Take a Stand, these two sort of triangle bags. And the scissor bag is called Running with Scissors. And she just kind of thinks of everything, which I love.
Because she actually is like a sewer and a quilter and like, I don't know, and I feel like her products are just made right. Like they're high quality. Like you're paying not that much for something that is really good and useful, and it's more expensive than what you would get if it's not as useful.
Well, and what I love, agreed, and what I really love about her patterns, this is becoming an Annie commercial, which I'm totally okay with, is that the way she makes bags, it's like she designs bag making for quilters because you essentially just make a bunch of little quilts and then bind them all together. That I can do. There's typically no templates.
Right.
There's no like weird big pieces of paper you have to cut out, which I'm sure are fine, but as a quilter, it's not the kind of sewing I'm used to, so I don't do it very well. But this, like, you know, this pocket, I made one square and sewed it onto this bigger square with binding. Like, it's all makes sense to a quilter's mind. And they feel substantial, which is another thing. They're not floppy.
Because of the soft and stable.
Yeah. And that's a pretty genius product as well.
All right. So we have just a little bit of time for some last questions here. So I'm going to do kind of just a quick round of questions. They were asking if you have a favorite designer that you buy fabric from.
Ooh. You know, I have a couple of designers that I really love, mostly because they do things I can't do. Like Carolyn Friedlander is one. I don't understand minimalism as a concept, and so I'm always like baffled by her fabric, and I have tried to make her, like, baffled in a good way.
Right.
I have tried to make her patterns out of my fabric. It doesn't work. Like, they're so much better in her fabric, and for a designer to have such a complete vision is really impressive to me. Like, she is her fabric. I love Alison Glass. I love Anna Maria Horner. I love Kay Fawcett. I mean, Kay Fawcett is the first fabric I ever saw that made me realize that people design fabric, that it's not just all reproduction. So I have to give him a lot of credit for getting me into this.
Yeah, because he was like the only, like, if you went back like 24 years, it was like if you were modern, I mean, modern wasn't even a thing. It wasn't a thing, but like if you liked that style, That's all there was.
It was the first fabric I ever saw that I felt like was designed for me. Like, it was so original and so clearly made by a single mind, like a vision, you know? And then as Brandon Mabley became a designer under Kafe and Philip Jacobs, and they formed that collective, like, such a complete vision. I tend to not be emotionally connected to a quilt that's not at least 80% my own fabric. I've discovered that recently.
Yeah.
I made a quilt completely out of Liberty of London, which I adore. And I have like no emotional... It's a beautiful quilt, and I totally love it. But it doesn't feel like mine because it's not my fabric. And so I've realized that if it's not mostly my fabric, I have like no emotional connection. Yeah, but I collect all of Alison Glass's batiks, which she is very aware of because I harass her often. I collect all of Kafe's large florals. I collect basically anything Anna Maria. I have quite a stash of fabric, actually.
All right. And do you wash your finished quilts?
I wash my finished quilts. I don't pre-wash my fabric.
Okay. And with all your focal print fabric, would you ever do a panel?
A panel is a hard thing for me to wrap my head around. Like, I don't, because like with a panel, you sort of leave it.
Yeah.
And I don't know how to make a quilt with like just a thing you just leave be. Like, it's confusing to me. I'm not against it. I just, I don't know how I would design a panel. Like, I've been asked that by, actually Free Spirits asked me to do that several times, and I'm like, I just don't get it. Like, what I would do with it. Like, I just leave it?
Yeah, and then it's like if she designed a panel and it would be hard for her to work with, then it wouldn't be like hers. It wouldn't.
Yeah,
it's
a weird thing.
Yeah.
Like, because for me the joy is making these images connect, and a panel doesn't do that. Like, it has edges, and what I love about designing fabric is it's unlike any other sort of drawing or painting, because there's no edges. It has to repeat infinitely forever, and that's what I love the most. So I don't know, maybe, I mean, I never say never, but I haven't yet come up with a way to do it.
And are you planning on doing another machine with Bernina?
Am I planning on doing another machine with Bernina? I mean, I hope so someday. Maybe, I don't know. I mean, that's more up to Bernina than me.
Oh, okay. And real quick, Kimberly, we are doing a giveaway after this live stream's over, which will be in a few minutes. If you could read the details of the giveaway.
So on the giveaway, if you leave a comment after Lily publishes it, so not right now, but after it is its own standalone video, after the live stream, let us know what your favorite thing about Tula Pink's live stream today, whether it be her project, something she talked about, and we're going to pick 2 winners, one from Facebook and one for YouTube, with a signed patch and enamel pin. And we're going to announce it. You have until Sunday, January 19th, and then we don't work Sunday. On Monday, we'll post the
and these
winners.
are all totally gone. These are from my personal stash of pins and patches because they're long sold out, but
very exclusive.
Very exclusive.
Yes.
Fun comment from Marsha Baker. She says she's 69 and has had her lightsaber for many years.
Oh, that's amazing.
That is amazing. And then a lot of people were wondering if you had any advice for people who feel like they buy a lot of fabric, but then they're afraid to cut it up.
Yes, I do have advice for people who buy a lot of fabric and are afraid to cut it up, because I too fall in that camp. So one of the things that I have that I'm terrified to cut up, or used to be, is all my old Heather Ross. I've collected all the Heather Ross fabric for years and years. And so now I've actually, my workaround for that is I buy 2 sets of everything, one to cut, one to keep. But I took all that Heather Ross that I had forever that I can't obviously go back and buy more of at this point. And I made one epic, like, master quilt that took me 4 years to make. And now I see that fabric every single day.
Yes.
Where I used to never see it at all. So I've actually sort of like turned on that. And it's like, if I really love a fabric, I make something epic to honor it. And as a quilter, I always believe you should sleep under your best work. So the quilt on my bed is always the one that I think is the best thing I've made. And so right now it's my Heather Ross sort of tribute quilt that has a lot of my fabrics in it too, but it has it's where I took all my stash of Heather Ross. And I fussy cut every single piece and made it really, really special. And now I get to see it all the time.
All right. And we do have another new YouTube member, Aileen Jackson. Welcome, Aileen.
Welcome. Betty.
All right. And then I have one more question that I'm going to ask here. Tim Finney's Quilting Life is asking, are your tattoos designed by you, or are any of them related to your fabric lines?
All of my tattoos are actually, well, should we just do this? Are all based on, they're all inspired by my fabrics, but they're actually all William Morris.
I didn't know that.
So this is the owl from Full Moon Forest. This is my bird from Plume. But it's not really my bird.
Right.
It's like through the William Morris. All the foliage is William Morris. This is from Chipper, Little Chipmunk. This is my rabbit from Slow and Steady. And this is as much clothing as I'm willing to take off on camera. But so it's actually, each one represents a fabric line, but they're actually all based on William Morris illustrations, and all the botanicals are William Morris.
I would have never known that.
Yeah. And there's no color, if that question's coming. They're all black.
Wow.
Did you have the same person do them?
Yes, the same person does all of mine, except for my knuckles. But all of my illustration tattoos are all done by an artist named Rachel Hauer.
Do you have any questions, Kimberly?
Awesome. No, I just want to say thanks for watching. We're so excited to film some Tula videos, and we'd love for you to subscribe. And just a reminder, I won't have a live stream this Friday, so I will see you guys next week, and have a great weekend.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye, everyone.